ready to start?
Yes, go ahead.
Great. Do any of the ARB members have questions before we get started today? We've got a little bit of a different process going.
No.
No, I don't.
Okay, great. I'm Margaret Malashevsky. I'm a manager in the planning division, and I am calling the May 17th, 2021 meeting of the Albemarle County Architectural Review Board to order. We do have a quorum present. The ARB members that are present electronically, and we have today Frank Hancock, Chris Henningsen, and Frank Stoner. Because both of our chair and vice chair are absent, the first thing we need to do today is to elect a chairperson for the day. So would one of the ARB members like to make a motion to get that done?
I'll move to elect Frank Stoner as chairperson for the day.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. Carolyn, can you call the vote?
Sure. Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen,
Aye.
Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Great, thank you. Frank Stoner will be our chairperson for the day, and I will turn the meeting over to you.
Thanks, Margaret. So we have a quorum. Are there any disclosures?
Yes. I will need to recuse myself from ARB 2021-42, the Starbucks plan.
And I'll have to recuse myself from Scott's Ivy Exxon. Not sure what the number is on that.
I think it's 40.
Yes.
Okay.
Frank, all those announcements that were on that first sheet of the document sent out need to be read. Would you like me to read those into the record?
Yeah, if you don't mind, Margaret, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with ordinance number 20-A16, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. Opportunities for public access to this meeting are posted on the county's website and at the county calendar. The public has real-time audio-visual access to this meeting over Zoom and real-time audio access over telephone, both as provided in the lawfully posted notice. This meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the county's website. This online meeting is a public record and subject to disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. And just a few notes for all speakers. When it's your turn to speak, please state your name for the record. Everybody who's participating today, please mute your microphone until it's your turn to speak. And for applicants who are making presentations, your presentation is limited to a total of 15 minutes, which you can divide among your team members. Carolyn will let us know when the 15 minutes are up. And I think that's it for all the announcements.
Great, thank you, Margaret.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any members of the public present today who want to make comments on items unrelated to the agenda items today?
I do not have anybody with their hand up at this time.
Okay, thanks, Carol. And we'll move to the consent agenda. ARB 2021-37, the Greenbrier Wawa initial site plan.
So as I mentioned in an email earlier, we had some technical issues on this item. So I would like to recommend that the item be moved from the consent agenda. We would need a motion from one of the ARB members to do that.
So I'll move to move it off of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Carolyn, can we have the vote?
Yes, Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Hensington.
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. All right, I have a presentation for the Wawa application. I am going to try and share my screen here. Are you able to see my PowerPoint slide?
Yep.
Great. Okay, let me make one more adjustment. Okay. This is an application for a Wawa convenience store and fuel pump canopy to be located at the southeast corner of the Route 29 and Greenbrier Drive intersection. The staff report for this application addressed the site plan for the proposal. It did not provide an analysis of the architectural design of the store or the canopy, although there were a few references to architectural issues based on information that was available in the site plan. And there was a glitch at our end in the submittals. The architecture was part of the applicant's submittal and it should have been addressed in the staff report. So in this presentation, I'll first summarize the site plan issues that were covered in the staff report, and then we'll come back to the architecture. So regarding the site plan, we did identify some issues that will need to be addressed with the future submittal. They range from landscaping, lighting to issues with equipment and the dumpster and the canopy. The landscaping does not meet all of the guidelines requirements, in part because of the extent of utilities and easements that are on the property. There are spacing issues. The large trees are provided along the frontages, but they're spaced very close together. There are also gaps in the planting of trees and shrubs along the frontages. Trees are not shown along all the perimeters of parking areas as the guidelines require. And there's no landscaping shown along the property line to offset impacts of the loading area. So we've made recommendation to address each of those issues. The lighting plan shows that there's excessive spillover at the Route 29 entrance and along Greenbrier Drive. And there's also excessive illumination under the canopy. In terms of equipment, the vent stacks for the underground storage tanks will be visible from the street. They're located very close to Greenbrier Drive. And a fire hydrant and water meter are located right at the entrance into the site from the Route 29 entrance corridor. And we've recommended moving these items and adding landscape screening. A berm is proposed at the rear of the site, and chain link fence is proposed at the northeast corner of the site. And we've recommended grading for a more natural appearance and an alternate fence design. The proposal includes a dumpster structure like the one approved at Pantops. The proposed location is right in line with the entrance from Route 29. Pantops dumpster was approved with gates that are white. That white color really stands out, as you can see in the photo on the left side of this slide. And so we've recommended a more muted color that would blend better with the surroundings. All right, let's talk about the proposed architecture. The design of the store and the canopy are proposed to be the same as what was approved for the Pantops location. There are a few items to note. One issue is the size of the canopy. The approved Pantops size is 96 feet by 81 feet, and the Greenbrier size on the site plan is 96 feet by 85 feet. So we've recommended revising to the smaller size. Another issue to note is that the right side elevation of the store building has much greater visibility at the Greenbrier site than at the Pantops location. The elevation does have some detailing, but has no windows and just one service door. As mentioned earlier, the loading area is proposed along this elevation. So we've recommended that some landscaping be added along the perimeter of the site to offset those visual impacts. Also, there's a discrepancy in the information for the canopy. The architectural drawings show dimensions like those approved for Pantops with the bottom of the eave at 14 feet 6 inches, which in the earlier reviews was determined to be consistent with the entrance corridor guidelines. The top of the canopy is noted at 2211 in the architectural drawings, but the luminaire summary in the lighting plan shows canopy fixture mounting heights up to almost 27 feet. So the lighting plan doesn't represent the canopy that's shown in the architectural drawings, and revisions will be needed to the lighting plan. So I'll run through the architectural drawings. You can see them. This is the current condition of the site. This is the site with the proposed development. This is a bird's eye view of the existing condition and a bird's eye view of the proposed development. The fuel pump canopy elevations in perspective, and the store building elevations. As I noted, the design is the same as the Pantops location, and even these drawings still show the Pantops street names. So although the staff report did not include a detailed architectural analysis, the report did address the few architectural issues that we identified based on information that was available there. And after looking at the architectural drawings that were submitted, the only additional recommendation I'd make at this time would be to correct the street names in the elevation drawing titles. So our recommends for approval of the initial site plan with no conditions on that initial site plan, but with a list of recommendations for the final site plan to be submitted with the next submittal. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
I don't have any questions. I have a question for the applicant, but I think no questions for you. Thanks.
Margaret, can you possibly go back to the perspective rendering from 29 heading north
Sure.
or looking north?
Let me pull that up just a second. Are you able to see the slide?
I am. Yep. Okay, that's great. Thanks. I just wanted.
Okay. Would you like me to leave it up?
I think we'll see what the applicant wants to do.
Okay. Were there any other questions from ARB members?
I just have a quick question, Margaret. Was the door off center on the Pantops building like it is in this application?
Which
You remember the front entrance? I guess it's the south elevation
I would.
or labeled
Yes,
south elevation.
That's a good question. I can
Maybe
check.
the applicant could shed light on that if.
Okay. I don't have those other drawings right here. I'd assumed it was because the labels haven't changed, but.
Thank you.
Mhm. Okay, if the ARB members have no additional questions, I think we can move on to the applicant's presentation.
A representative from Wawa who.
Yeah, so hello everyone, this is Ryan Perkins with Kimley Horn. So we do have Jeff Bell from Wawa on the line as well. And we have Mark Fontaine, he's the developer with No Consulting. And myself with Kimley Horn and Carter Baum in my office as well. So I don't have a presentation prepared, but I can share my screen and just kind of run through and address some of your comments. So I'll try to share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
We are.
Good. Okay, so yeah, just a little bit about the project. Obviously, we're going on the corner of 29 and Greenbrier. It's an existing auto repair service. Here's the oblique rendering that Margaret had previously shown. Our parcel extends pretty far back here into the woods. It's a long rectangular shaped parcel. And obviously, we're totally wiping out everything that is on the site today and moving forward with this layout. So the layout, as Margaret mentioned, is very similar to the layout that was proposed at the Pantops Wawa, where we have 9 MPDs, the same 6,000 square foot convenience store, and the same amount of parking spaces, which is the code minimum. Obviously, we have one entrance shown on 29 and one entrance shown on Greenbrier at this time. And then we also have a parking lot in the back that's part of a negotiation with this rehab hospital in exchange for us doing some improvements on their parcel, which is a small triangle in this area over here along Greenbrier. Wawa is going to go ahead and install 20 parking spaces for them to use. So this project, it's pretty tight from north to south. So we've done what we can with landscaping. The major, not issue with this site, but constraint of this site is the grading. So we've we don't have a ton of flexibility on the site with grading, but we've done, like I said, what we can, because this Greenbrier entrance sits so low compared to the entrance off of 29. So if you looked at the grading plan as part of our plan set, you can kind of see the challenges. But with that, we set the site back as far as we could off of 29 to allow us to plant the required plantings and plant them outside of the existing easements that are on the property. So we don't just have the 10-foot landscape strip along 29, we have roughly a 20-foot strip, which allows us to stay out of those existing utility easements and fiber optic lines and get the required plantings in. We did have a call with Margaret last week, and we discussed the plantings that we have proposed and the changes that she would like to see. And we're going to have no problem making those changes. It was changing plant material and changing the spacing. She also mentioned moving the fire hydrant that's here near the sign, the proposed fire hydrant, and getting that out of the right along this frontage and moving it over to the side. So we're not going to have any issues doing that. As far as the building, just real quickly, yes, it is the same building as the Pantop site. Jeb could probably speak to this, but I'm pretty sure that the door, like you mentioned, is offset. It's the same exact building. So I'm pretty sure they are all offset. And then Margaret made the one comment about reducing the canopy by 4 feet in the dimension, the east-west dimension. Jeb's on the phone. He can back me up probably. I don't think that's going to be an issue. So basically, we'll just match the 81-foot dimension from the Pantop's approved canopy and use that same exact canopy for this site. I can't imagine that's going to be a problem. But yeah, that's all I've got really. If we can obviously answer any questions, any additional questions you have.
Hey, hello everyone. This is Jeb. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hey. Okay, thanks. Sorry, I don't mean to be incognito here. I don't have the bandwidth to run my video, so apologies. But I could jump in here and pick up on some of those comments that Ryan alluded to. So the canopy dimensions, not sure why there's a discrepancy there. The intent, we can certainly match what we did at Pantop's. And the building, yeah, the doors are offset. It's funny, when you look at the front elevation, it's pretty obvious. It never really occurred to me that it's that far off in person, because I think when you're, interacting with the store, it's just less obvious that it's offset like that. The reason is because of the vestibule inside. So those doors, are, you can see it in the plan view. I know you guys are all architects, so you can appreciate that if we tried to move that over, I think it would just push all kinds of impacts throughout the inside. So we can talk more about that. And then the other comment I heard was about the trash compound door color, and I agree. I think when you look at that on its own, it does look pretty stark, and I agree. I think looking at the trash compound, a more muted, I think was the word, color, would look better. I guess my concern is that the white matches the building, and if that were, a gray or something, I don't know. I can talk about with the design team, but then it wouldn't match the building, and then is that more awkward? I don't know, but I wanted to get your thoughts on that. But I'll stay here if you got any more questions for me.
And Margaret, I'll also point out, you mentioned the heights that were in the lighting study for the fuel canopy. Yeah, those are off. So we do need to reduce those heights and fix the lighting plan for you.
Okay. I should have mentioned that I have additional photos of the Pantop's location if anyone wants to see something there, and I can show you the entrance there if you want to see that.
So Ryan, just to summarize, of the recommendations made, which ones can you guys not achieve?
I mean, all the recommendations were manipulating some of the landscaping, and we don't have any problems with that. We were showing a berm in the back with a chain link fence. We can make it more of a free form berm in the back and remove that chain link fence and go with a different type of fence. So that's not going to be an issue. All the landscaping around the two frontages are not going to be an issue. It sounds like Jeb's willing to address some of the architectural changes. The lighting comments, some of those are just plan errors that we will have fixed. So I'm scrolling through them right now. I don't think, and I can go to the list at the bottom. I don't think offhand that we have a problem with any of these.
There was one comment related to the right side of the building and the blankness of that wall, I think. And I don't, the building is far enough back. I'm not sure it's a huge issue, but I don't know whether it's in there as a recommendation or requirement, but.
Yeah, I thought that was noted, and it was just to add whatever landscaping we can versus make changes to the building.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll do what we can on that side to add some additional landscaping. And I'll pull up my landscape plan just to show you what we're working with. Unfortunately, there's overhead electric lines right along the property line. So that's why we haven't gone with large trees. But we could certainly put in some shrubs here that, don't grow up to, beyond 10 feet, or maybe some columnar trees. So I think we can definitely help with that. And we can provide a line of sight that shows, where the building to the south of us comes into play in terms of the line of sight and when you could, when this would be blocked from view 129.
The berm at the rear of the site that's mentioned in the staff report, what is the purpose of that?
Well, so the rehab folks behind us, they wanted some type of separation or block from the property. So they asked for a fence, and we just decided to add a berm as well. We have a fair amount of excess cut on the site as well. So part of that was not hauling it off. So the conversation we had last week with, I believe it was Charles and Margaret, was to make this more of a free form, make it look more like it fits in versus just a mound of dirt. So we have plenty of flexibility in the back portion of the site. This is the only part of the site where we have flexibility. So we told Margaret we'd work with her on that one.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for the applicant?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay, well, we'll close that section of the hearing and move to discussion.
Frank, can we ask Carol if she knows if there's anyone who's from
Oh, right, yeah, sorry. Carolyn, is there anybody from the public who has a comment or question about this?
I don't have anybody with their hand raised.
Okay, great. Chris, Frank, any thoughts? Chris, why don't you start with you?
I think it's a really nice site plan. I think, with the relegated parking, I think the amount of landscaping, getting that extra 10 feet out front, something that we struggle with this corridor in particular is the overhead lines and trying to manage program with, meeting these frontage landscaping requirements. So I think you guys have done a great job doing that. So yeah, I think the initial site plan looks great. As far as the architecture, I feel like, we know this pretty intimately, having spent lots of time with this building and this canopy. So I really don't have any comments there either. Thank you for the reminder of the door being offset. It's just so symmetrical at that facade, it just jumps out at you. But in all honesty, I don't think that will have much of an impact on the corridor. I don't know even how visible that front door will be, looking through the canopy. So I think great package, great visualization. So thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, I did not have any concerns with anything over and above the recommendations made by staff. I think it was well presented and you know, pretty clear cut. So thank you for the presentation.
And I'll echo what Frank and Chris have just said. I think it's a nice site plan. It's obviously an enormous improvement from what's there now. It's a low bar to get over. But I think you guys have done a nice job with the site. And obviously we know what it looks like because we got a couple of them up already. So I don't have any other questions or issues with what's been presented. Margaret, what action?
Pull up the action memo so we can, yeah, just a second, let me pull that up. Can you see the Word document?
Yes.
So the action for today is on the initial plan. This is our standard format. You got sort of 4 different sections to it. The first bullet being recommending approval of the initial plan without any conditions. And then we have just the list of all the conditions, looks like, or the recommendations, the 27 comments for the next round of review. I've added here in red just to correct the street names referenced in the architectural elevations. That would be the only change from what was in the staff report.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move to forward the recommendations outlined in the staff report to the agent for the site review committee. We didn't have any amendments, did we, Margaret?
One amendment was that last, was item 28, which reads, correct the street names referenced in the architectural elevation drawing titles.
Yes, sorry about that.
So I'll second.
Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to the regular review items. The first one on the list is ARB 2021-40, Scott's Ivy Exxon final site plan.
Thanks, Frank. The application I'm presenting on is the review of architecture and final site plan to construct a 3,200 square foot addition to the existing service station and to complete associated site improvements. The site is located at 4260 Ivy Road on the north side of Route 250, approximately 265 feet east of the Route 250 and Ivy Depot Road intersection. On January 4th, 2021, ARB provided comments on the preliminary architecture and recommend approval without conditions on the initial site plan. The focus of staff's comments on the site plan and architectural drawings as highlighted by the primary points of discussion in the staff report center on the building design and landscaping in the perimeter parking area. With regards to the building design, windows have been added to the second story of the concrete block portion of the addition, and the windows on the corrugated metal portion have been shifted up to align with them. The windows on the second story of the south end of the building help relieve the blankness that was present along this elevation. Material and color samples have been provided as requested. The sample confirms staff's concerns regarding the utilitarian nature of the materials and the brandy nature of the, of the proposed colors. Reducing the blue band by 2 feet in height and shifting the color stripes are positive changes, but the placement instant emphasizes the trademark nature of the design, and the use of the light gray color emphasizes the mass. Maintaining the red brick of the existing building, replacing the color stripes with architectural detailing, and the use of more muted earth tone color for the addition may allow for some minimal painted corporate colors to be used. Regarding landscaping proposed for the site, the plan has been revised to show trees and shrubs along the western perimeter, consistent with the rest of the site. Along the perimeter of the parking area, 4 large trees are shown. However, 2 additional trees are required, and the 2 trees that are proposed north and south of the stormwater facility may conflict with nearby pipes and hardscapes. In the report, staff had recommended shifting the 2 trees to the east of the stormwater facility, but after further review, the easements along the facility does not make this recommendation feasible. However, 2 additional trees are needed along the perimeter of the parking area to satisfy the landscaping requirements. Because of the outstanding architectural issues, we have not recommended approval of the final site plan at this time, but have provided a list of recommendations. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Right.
I don't have any questions. Thanks, Chris.
I don't have any questions either at this time. Do we have a representative of the applicant here?
Yes, this is Scott Collins with Collins Engineering. We also have the architect, Mark Kessner, available as well to talk about the project. Overall, I'll start in with the site aspects of the project, and then I'll let Mark talk a little bit more about the architecture. But from a site standpoint, I wanted to talk about 2 things related to this project. One was about the screening on this site, specifically the area where the cars are being stored for repair. This was a pretty big discussion during the special use permit process, and what makes this site a lot different than a typical sort of auto or body shop is that there's no difference between what the car looks like on this site when it's awaiting repair versus a car that's complete. The cars are not, they don't come in pieces. It's just a service station. It's not an auto body repair. They're not taking cars that have been in accidents. So really the car looks like a regular car just parked in a parking lot. The reason for this whole application is so that they can expand the bays while they work on the cars, as opposed to what they have to do right now is when they make a diagnosis on the car, they have to, while they're waiting for parts or waiting for approval from the owner of the car to do the work, the car is sitting there taking up space on one of the lifts, and they have to take it down, put it back together, take it down and move it out of the way, and then go bring another car in. This allows them to actually have the car remain in the bay while they get the parts in and while they get authorization to proceed with the work. So really, that's what's the whole process of this, the whole reason for this additional bays. And with that, really, any cars that go out into this parking area, like I said, look like a regular parked car. And this area, because it's behind the building's screening 3/4 of this area, and with no real need to put sort of a fence behind to screen the spaces from behind the building. So all you have is just really that little bit of view shed you have, which is also shielded by the dumpster. What we're proposing to do is bring that dumpster fence. I know that probably didn't always, it's hard to see on the site plan, but we extended that fence sort of right in front of the dumpster area to sort of cut off that viewport right there. So really you have the building here and the dumpster enclosure here really sort of screening this whole entire area. But then again, you're just screening cars in a parking lot, not cars that are being worked on. Plus you have all the additional landscaping that we provided along Route 250 and in the parking lot and everywhere else, really creating that screening buffer. And so the idea is sort of kind of leave this area open, and so they can move cars in and out of the area and not have to sit there and put up fences and work on ways to get cars in and out if they put a fence there. And it's not doing much any good right now either, because it's not screening the cars there's no difference between the cars. So that was the main thing I really want to talk about as far as is from the screening standpoint. And as far as the location of those trees, those utilities, those drain lines are, we're talking about an 8-inch under yard drain. We have a little flexibility with how that works, but that's not a public utility. It's not anything different from running a drain line, a roof line through a subdivision or from somebody's house. So having it in near proximity of the trees, it's not going to affect the integrity of the tree or the drain pipe itself. I don't see a huge issue, but that can also be bent around a little bit to make a little bit more room. So I don't really see a huge issue with those locations of the two trees, but we're willing to talk about it and look at making some tweaks if we have to. So at that point, I'll turn it over to Mark, who will probably talk more about the architecture aspect of it.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Chris, for running through the proposal. I don't have another presentation, but I would like to address a couple of the recommendations that have been presented, which largely seem to be about color and coordination of color between the elements. When we took a close look at kind of what this building was, and if you look at any of the service stations from this era, from the 50s, whether it's an Esso or Texaco or Gulf or whatnot, they're usually white or light gray, and they generally had a racing stripe around them. Texaco was green, Gulf was orange, Esso was red. So the brick was added to this building at a later point. It was not original to the building. So we think the color scheme that we have now is actually more consistent with what this building would have looked like back in the day when it was built. And I think the comments are good about coordinating the color between the dumpster and the vending and the building. We feel good about the massing. This is not a big building. This is a relatively small building. It's only 22 feet tall. So I think a polite stripe, we've reduced the stripe intentionally to be more consistent with the service stations of this period. And I think if we're designing a service station, it should look like a service station. If it's a house, it's a house. Church. So I feel good about the color scheme, and the more we looked into what these service stations looked like at this period, the better I felt about how consistent it is with those, and to not try to make it look like something that it's not. So we're here for questions. I do appreciate everybody's time, and hopefully we can help Scott. And Scott Ram is also with us today to help us through this.
Yeah, this is Scott Ram. Thanks, Mark and Scott. I don't have anything else to add. I'm using their services to help me through this, so I'm happy to answer questions if any are needed to be directed to me.
It's great. Thank you. Thank you, Scott and Mark. Appreciate the presentation. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Then we'll turn to discussion. Frank, it's just the two of us. Nothing.
Sure. I think, maybe this is a question for Scott Collins, just in looking at kind of the street view and the existing conditions, I think it shows that chain link fence with barbed wire. Just to be clear, that's going away. I think that kind of reads as like the vehicle, I don't know the right term, but containment area or waiting area. But there's not going to be, those elements are not a part of this plan. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. I think as far as I guess we're in discussion now. This is Frank talking to Frank. The site plan looks great. I think, I appreciate the added landscaping. I think it's a pretty robust landscape plan. I like everything happening in the back of the building. Even kind of, drive up parking is relegated to the side. It's not, competing with the architecture. So as far as final site plan, I think it's appropriate as presented. And maybe obviously there's some staff comments that I think the applicant's willing to address. One other piece we didn't talk about is the screening of the HVAC. Seems to me that's an easy fix, that you could kind of continue that fence around. There's already portions of it, or just explain that that's fully screened. So those are my comments on the site plan. In thinking about the architecture, Mark, I really appreciate the context and hearing that. And I don't know if that was kind of discussed, the first time we reviewed it. But I think that's important to place it in that context, and, gives us an idea of where your thinking is and what, is driving some of these decisions. I think the thing that I may be struggling with is just the impact of that blue on the corridor. And it might just be a rendering, how we're seeing it, but I feel like the impact of that blue band and in relationship with the red band, existing red band on the fuel canopy, I think it's just a lot of color and, exasperated by the fact that it's a light colored building. I'm okay with that. I think that's a good unifying element with, you've got the different materials, bringing it all together with the white color, I think works for me. But I didn't know if you had explored any, any other way to use that blue that would have less of an impact.
So Frank, we did look at a number of scenarios with that blue band, and we have intentionally thinned it up so that it was more consistent with the thickness, if you will, of the red band. It wasn't a competing band. We want the two colors to kind of complement each other, and I do understand there's a lot going on, but what we do think is happening with by leaving or by painting the brick on the existing and bringing some level of consistent backdrop to the overall mass, we think that helps minimize sort of the number of different things that are going on. We're trying to produce some consistency here. The brick that's on the building is not a great brick from the start. So we're trying to mitigate that and tie it into the existing, but also give that blue band a little bit of oomph, but not too much. We do, it's there for a purpose. It's a stripe for a reason. But could we make it a little thinner? Sure.
Or even is it a frame? I don't know, like if you explored something like that, but I think that's the thing that just jumps out and screams trademark, is just that amount of blue, on the three prominent sides on the corridor.
Yeah, I think, and again, it goes back to context. When we look at these old stations, that's what they did. They put this band all the way around them. I mean, if you Google 1950s service stations, every single picture has a colored band that stripes it. So, and it's pretty cool. I mean, my great uncle ran a Exxon for 50 years in orange. So I'm used to seeing it, and it's pretty normal. It's pretty cool. We can take it off the back.
I'm kind of echoing Frank Hancock's thoughts on this. I like what you've done with the building. I think it's completely appropriate. I too am struggling with this band, particularly when if you look at the existing station in perspective as you're coming down the road, that is a bold branding element on the canopy now. If you guys were inclined to maybe change that, that might help. But I feel like there's too much happening. And while I appreciate the fact that this is consistent with how gas stations might have looked in the 60s, I think we're in a rural area, not an urban area. It feels too trademark to me. It feels like it's too much, especially given the location, which is again, Ivy is a small historic village, and if we were restoring this building to what it was originally, I think that would be one thing. But we're putting a big addition on it, so I in this case, I'm going to side with Mr. Hancock and ask if there are other solutions you guys could think of that might help achieve some of what you're trying to achieve, which I guess is to try to kind of unify the two masses or provide some consistency across those masses. I personally think you could take the front of the building and do, from a color standpoint, maybe go with a slightly different color and actually, instead of unifying the masses, actually keep them more separate. But that's well beyond our scope to get into that kind of detail. But are there any other thoughts, Mark, that you guys have as alternatives? Could you do the blue, red and yellow on the canopy and not on the building? Any thoughts there?
Scott, jump in anytime if you want to. I think that red wants to stay on the canopy. We're certainly open to studying the color scheme some more on the back. I guess if we could maybe talk about just the massing and the overall concept of painting the existing building as a starting point, that would help. We're trying not to go back to just the brick color, but Scott, what's your thought on the canopy?
So my guess would be that Exxon would not want the canopy to change. So that would be my first thought. I haven't asked because it has never come up before. But I would think that would be an issue with unbranding that canopy. A question for the two Franks, if the blue stripe was just across the front of the building versus all the way around, and if the existing building was the gray and the addition was a different color, would something like that make a difference?
Are the blue and yellow important because they're trademark colors, or are they important for some other reason?
Yes, part of the Napa Auto Care trademark, yes.
I think that'd be worth exploring. Just looking at something on the facade, I do think, Mark, to your question earlier about the massing and the unifying element of the color, me personally, I think that's successful. Yeah, I think the massing is appropriate. I think we've kind of worked through that. I think when the first time we saw the architecture, and I think you've added the fenestration at the top. I think that was a nice element, and I think the color, whether that's painting everything or just painting the red brick light, I think that's successful. So for me, it's just the paint trademark issue on the building. And I think, to Frank Stoner's point, that you've kind of already got it on the canopy, and then you're doubling down on it on the building. So you have those two elements, and it sounds like maybe the canopy has to stay. So might be the building that gets another look.
I could just jump in for a second and point out that the fuel pump canopy guidelines state that architectural elements of the building shouldn't be altered to reflect trademark canopy design. But the intent of that guideline was really meant to not wrap the building in those color stripes like the canopy would normally have. So it was a pretty important part of the guidelines when those fuel pump canopy guidelines were first added to the guidelines document. It would set a difficult precedent for future gas stations.
So,
Yeah.
so if we didn't wrap the building entirely, would that meet the intent of the guidelines?
I'm guessing not, but Margaret, you can weigh in on that.
I guess I'm not wrapping the building entirely, could be multiple things. So I don't know.
Yeah, oh, okay. I think what I'm hearing is that the stripe is too much. The massing is okay, and the articulation of windows is okay. If we potentially kept the lighter color on the front existing piece and maybe painted the back a different complementary color, I could see that being a darker gray that would help to minimize that mass if you still think it's a problem. And then maybe look at something like a smaller stripe on the front of the building only.
Could you just do signage there, Mark? That's in the three colors. If it's Napa, I don't know what the Napa sign would look like, and I don't know, Mark. Would we approve a three-color sign like this as a separate application?
A sign can have three colors. A stripe on the building, although it would act as signage, wouldn't necessarily be counted all as signage. I think if a stripe was to be approved, it would be easier to accommodate on the added portion of the building, not on the front of the building.
Yeah, it competes with the canopy in a way that, again, I think feels like too much.
This is Scott Ram for Frank. You were saying it competes with the canopy. If the canopy was another color like white, would that make a difference, or a different color?
I don't know. Yeah, good question. It would certainly eliminate that. I mean, that the canopy is quite bold. As you're driving down 250, you're not going to miss it. I think it's hard to say. I think something other than a stripe. If you could do signage on the front of the building in three color that didn't sort of compete with that canopy stripe. I like Mark's idea of maybe painting the back of the building a slightly different, a darker gray. I think it might help mitigate what feels like, as you say, the building's not that big. So I think in real life, it probably is okay either way. I just think if the purpose is to attract attention and bring people to the building, I think you're doing that already. I don't think you need the stripe, and architecturally, I don't think it does much for you. And I think just from our standpoint, looking at what kind of precedent that sets, that just opens a door that we probably don't want to open. I mean, we just did Wawa. We beat Wawa up on 29 multiple times on their first application. If they had come in with a stripe building like this, I can tell you, there's no way that ever would have been approved.
Understood.
Okay, thank you.
Frank, any other thoughts on your?
I agree, Frank. I think the other piece to this, there's just a lot going on with, the gas prices sign, canopy, building stripe. It's kind of three big trademark elements, which is something, we spend a lot of time talking about a trademark building or trademark elements on the corridor. And I think this is just, we can't have that much color, that much, right. Especially as Frank Sterner mentioned, in this context, kind of the rural, more village feel where, there's only a couple neighbors. So I think it's really important that this fit into its setting as much as possible and architecturally.
Mark, I don't know if that helps at all, but.
Yeah, I think we're, after all the conversation, I feel like we're very close to having a solution, and I would, I don't know what sort of approval we might be able to come out with today with some conditions on the color scheme, but I feel like we've largely talked about color only, so I think we can resolve that pretty easily. And if it is a sign, I understand that would be a different application.
Gotcha. So you're okay with a conditional approval that the stripe go away?
Yeah.
Okay. Margaret, what action do we need to take?
I'll share my screen. The staff report recommendation was just to provide a list of comments for the next submittal. Can you see the Word document with the 10 items listed?
Yeah.
So number one is the comment that relates to the colors. And I've made a change to number 4 based on the discussion about the fence. I've just changed it to indicate that if a fence is required for vehicles awaiting repair, and that's if the ordinance requires that, then a coordinated design would be needed. I don't think our intent was to say you simply based on entrance corridor, you need to have a fence. If the ordinance requires it for that use, then the fence design would need to be coordinated.
And do we know whether the ordinance requires it or not, or?
We were under the impression that it did, but we can resolve that at our end. We'll get with the planner who's reviewing the lead review on the site plan, and we'll get that coordinated.
Mark and Scott, these conditions work for you guys?
I have one quick question. Margaret, I appreciate you updating number 4 the way you did, and I think that's fair. Just out of curiosity, if zoning and ARB determine and planners determine it is necessary, is that fence something we can work out as administratively with you? And if there was some discussion of further discussion about it, we would take it to as maybe a work session. Is that the way that would work?
Well, that would be up to the ARB. I mean, it depends what action they're going to take now. I think the issue here is that chain link is not something that we would approve.
Understood. Yeah.
Frank, I don't know how you feel. I don't feel like it would need to come back to us over that particular issue.
No, I would be okay if that was handled administratively.
Do you all want to see the color revisions back?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you want to do that in a work session type of situation or as a full review?
I think work session is probably okay.
I agree. I think we're kind of there other than this issue.
In this case, if so again, as this was in the staff report, we recommended it as just a list of comments to be addressed with another submittal. If the primary issue is the color and you want to see that in a work session, then today you could make a motion for approval. This would still come back to you in a work session for number 1.
I'm sorry, I don't know if I fully understand. We would make a motion for approval with these conditions, and that would ensure that it would come back as a work session, just the architecture. Is that?
Yeah, let me. So all the comments that were in the staff report would basically be conditions of final approval, but the architecture and the color would need to come back, would be required to come back in a work session prior to that.
Okay. Frank, I don't have any other comments.
No, I don't either. I think you would have to move though.
Yes. I'll move for approval of the final site plan for ARB-2021-40, Scott's Ivy Exxon final site plan with the conditions listed in the staff report amended as follows. Number 1, add this review must be completed in a work session with the ARB. Item number 4, strike and vehicles awaiting repair. Add the following sentence. If a fence is required for vehicles awaiting repair, show a design that is coordinated with the overall development.
I'll second.
Okay, Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Great. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, we're going to move on to item ARB-2021-42, Starbucks 2231 Seminole Lane.
Has board members been swapped out? Karen?
I think we might still be waiting for somebody.
Yeah, I'm here now.
I swapped them out. You're good to go.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, the application I'm presenting on now is the review of architecture and final site plan to construct a 1,200 square foot building to accommodate a drive-through Starbucks in addition to associated site improvements. The site is located at 2231 Seminole Lane. On March 1st, 2021, the ARB provided comments on the preliminary architecture and recommended approval without conditions on the initial site plan. Staff did have a number of minor comments on the site, but none of them were significant enough from keeping us from recommending approval of the final plan. So the focus is on the material samples provided and the 3 points that are listed as primary points of discussion in the staff report. Other than removal of the mural from the south elevation, no changes have been made to the building design. In the review of the preliminary architecture, staff noted that the bond pattern, brick color, and strong texture of the walls contributed to a somewhat utilitarian appearance. However, the masonry samples provided, while not the traditional red brick, illustrate a brick color as a warmer tone that would be compatible with the surrounding context. Regarding the mechanical equipment, the architectural plans have been revised to show the location of the roof-mounted equipment, but it's still unclear whether the equipment will be visible from the entrance corridor and if any ground-mounted equipment is proposed. Staff recommends revising the architectural elevations to show the location and the height of the roof and wall-mounted equipment, and revising the site plan to show the location of ground-mounted equipment, or indicate on the plans that no ground equipment is proposed. With regards to the landscaping for the site, the plan has been revised to show to reduce the width of the travelway at the south end of the site to allow for 2 additional large trees to be provided along the western perimeter. The spacing still exceeds 40 feet near the travelway at the north end of the site, but the trees provided exceed the minimum planting requirements. The species layout and limited planting area, however, will likely result in overcrowded trees and conflicts with surrounding hardscapes. Between the parking area and the drive-through travelway, trees that meet the spacing and caliber requirement and additional shrubs have been provided. However, there's a potential landscaping conflict at the northeast corner of the parking area due to a nearby pipe. Staff recommends removing the London plane trees at the northeast and northwest corners of the parking area to avoid landscaping conflicts. Between the northern perimeter of the site and the drive-through travelway, the plan now shows 4 scarlet oaks with shrubs interspersed. Due to the limited planting area and their spread once mature, the proposed trees have the potential to conflict with the drive-through travelway and the landscaping on the adjacent parcel. Staff recommends replacing the scarlet oaks with medium-sized trees or more narrow columnar species. Staff recommends approval of the final site plan with the revisions in the staff report. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions that you all may have.
I don't have any questions. Thank you, though, for your presentation.
I don't have any questions either. Chris, thanks. Is there a representative of the applicant who wants to speak?
Yes. Hi, I'm Anna Fontaine from Timmons Group. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you for that presentation, Chris. That was a good quick summary. I was actually hoping to clarify which trees, because northeast and northwest were referenced, but I just wanted to clarify which ones you wanted removed. So that screenshot did help answer that question. We do not see any major issues here on the roof mounted equipment. The intent is that it will not be visible from the road, and Martha is also online here, so I'll pass it over to her shortly. The only other things I wanted to address were that there were details that you had requested that we will add to the site plan, no problem. I think Martha will also speak to some of the colors of the walls and dumpster enclosure. And I think I think all the other one, like anything regarding the photometric plan, we are coordinating and we'll get updated for you. And I think that sums that up. Martha, do you wanna take over and talking to some of the architectural points?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Let me give a quick summary of the proposed design. The building is 20 feet, 20 feet away from the access street with a large green area and showcasing a dark, deep green metal canopy with some metal screens that covers a small seating space. The canopy projects 10 feet up from the building, providing coverage to building benches that they're going to be cladded in wood. And to provide even more warmth on pleasant experience, we are proposing as well to clad the underside of the canopy with wood as well. We took in consideration the architecture of the area around us at the time to select all the materials for the skin of the building. And that's why we move ahead and propose a brick tone that is going to be medium gray tone and in a stack pattern that brings a lot of warmth and is an earthy tone that it goes well with the environment. We also took in consideration as well all the scales around the area when we proposed the building to be on 18 feet. One of the comments that Anna mentioned before, the equipment and the roof is not going to be visible because we are planning to have a 10 feet clear inside of the main building. And it gives us a parapet that is going to project at least 5 feet that is going to cover all that mechanical that we are proposing. I don't know, Adam, if you want to add up anything on the proposed building.
Yes. Is anybody sharing the deck or elevations?
I can share my screen if that helps.
Yep, great. This will be a drive-through only location at the intersection of 29 North and Seminole Lane. This will be the only Starbucks location on the northbound of 29 in Charlottesville. The location will feature channels for our patrons, including drive-through, curbside, pickup window for mobile orders, as well as traditional point of sale. The site will enjoy a large covered patio seating experience, providing the community and travelers an area of respite outdoors, surrounded by beautiful landscape and design. And I would pass it off to Martha to speak to design, but she just kind of spoke a lot to it. So unless there's any questions about Starbucks operations at the site or how the store will trade, I would hand it back off to Anna.
Can everyone see my screen? Is that showing up?
Yes.
Okay, great. So here are the color elevations. But this is all, Chris, just to be clear, this is what we submitted to you. So this is what you have seen. Nothing's changed thus far on these plans.
And what's the brown material on the building? Is it a wood-like? Yeah.
This portion,
Yep.
that I guess the color is looking kind of weird on this. Let me see if I can pull up a better. It is.
Yeah, that portion is going to be a wood accent. Yes, we can see it better on the 3D.
And at one point there was talk of about like a mural on the wall next to that. Is that kind of off the table now?
It's
I'm
not
not
sorry.
Oh, good. Did you want to go ahead, Martha?
Yes, I was about to tell the board that it's not out of the question, but we want to pursue the approval of the mural in another presentation and another submission.
Chris, any questions for the applicant?
No, my one question, which was the height of the parapet, was answered during the presentation. And based on one of the other renderings where you kind of get a overhead view, it didn't look to me like that was really going to be much of an issue. It might have been the last one of the renderings where the equipment is visible, but I don't think it would be visible from the ground.
And that would be the intent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also just to circle back, the well, Martha covered the walls, so never mind.
I don't have any further questions. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this matter?
Not at this time.
Okay. We'll close the public hearing and Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't really have any concerns about this. I thought staff comments were reasonable. I think moving the issue of the mural to a kind of another venue or later date is a good idea. And I think, you know, even without the mural, it's I didn't see anything that was remotely objectionable about the proposal. So to me, I didn't have any concerns that were, you know, above what was mentioned in the staff report.
Nor did I. I think it's a really nice plan. I'm not used to us asking people to take trees out, but I understand the reasons. So I don't have any further questions, and I'm comfortable with the recommendations from staff and comfortable with what's been submitted. Margaret? Or Chris?
Can you see my Word document?
Yes.
Great. So this is the recommendation that was in the staff report. It was a recommendation for, hold on. Oh, I've got the wrong name in here. Don't look at this. This is a recommendation for approval of the Starbucks at 2231 Seminole Lane with the conditions listed in the staff report. And from your discussion, it didn't sound like there were any of these 14 items that needed to change.
Is the applicant comfortable with these conditions and or recommendations? And I guess that's a question for you.
Yes, we feel good about these and don't foresee any issues addressing all of the recommendations.
Okay.
All right, I'll move for approval of ARB 2021-42 Starbucks final site plan with the conditions listed in the staff report.
One second.
All right, Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Henningsen.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all for your presentation.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, staff.
So I'm going to move on to other business. We got Frank back. The EC guidelines discussion.
So this item was intended to be just getting feedback from the ARB members on the outline that we began discussing at the last meeting. I don't know if you all want to do that today, or do you want to wait until we've got everybody present?
Personally, I didn't have a problem with the outline presented, but I do think it would be better if we kind of had a discussion with all the members present, just because you know, it's been an ongoing discussion. So you know, wouldn't want to leave any opinions left expressed on it. So that's just my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree as well.
Okay, great. I will put it on the agenda for our next meeting.
We have minutes to approve from the May 3rd meeting.
Yes. Just need a motion for approval.
I'll move to approve.
Second. Does anyone want to second the motion?
I was not at the May 3rd meeting, so I was planning to abstain. So I don't know if I should second and then abstain.
Right, yeah, good point.
Technically, you don't have to abstain from approving minutes if you weren't at the meeting. You can still do it.
It just makes me feel better that I
Just
wasn't
think
at.
they're good. You could
We can also
just appreciate the minutes, you know, like they're good reading.
That's right, yeah.
We can also postpone them till the next meeting as well, if that makes everyone more comfortable.
I'll second. We don't want them to think we couldn't get our business done.
Yeah.
Like we're gone.
That's right.
Because I feel like it's been a pretty good meeting. After everything we've had, you know, Frank taking over, Chris and I hopping out, Margaret, Chris, everybody doing all their parts. So.
Okay. Mr. Stoner,
Aye.
Mr. Hancock,
Aye.
and Mr. Hensington.
Aye.
I'm gonna start calling you Chris if that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. So sorry. Looking right at it. I thought it was bad with two Franks, but two Franks. What am I? Yeah, two Franks and
Two Franks and a Fred.
Fred. Yeah, just too many names.
Yeah.
No, I've known that for years. That my last name has probably 3 or 4 letters more than it ought.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're not the first, and you won't be the last.
Okay.
All right, I think that's it, right?
Yes, the next meeting is June 7th. Does everyone plan to be in attendance?
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
no? God willing.
Then it's 2:24. Frank, you can adjourn the meeting.
I will move that we adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everybody.
See you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.